The show began like any other Daystar program until Rebecca Lamb said that one thing that made everything different. Her shocking statement shocked everyone on the network. Doug and Joni were speechless, and fans began to doubt everything they thought they knew about the Daystar family. It was a surprise when this truth was told live on air. Not only was what Rebecca said personal, it was also explosive and emotional, and it's taking the ministry apart from the inside. That Lamb family looked like a picture of faith and goodness for many years. Millions of people watched them on TV, where they smiled and preached love, hope, and the truth. A Christian family that was strong, united, and unable to be broken was shown to the whole world. Things weren't nearly as clean as they seemed behind the cameras, though. Marcus and Joni's daughter, Rebecca Lamb, carried around secrets she couldn't tell anyone. She had a warm smile on screen, but behind it were years of anger, fear, and shame. Rebecca and her husband J.W. were asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement. At first, it seemed like a simple way to protect the family's name and the ministry's. But over time, it turned into something worse. It wasn't just about money or business that the NDA covered. Personal things that shouldn't have been kept secret were snatched away thanks to it. This was used to keep things quiet and protect what went on behind closed doors from being seen by the public. For Rebecca, the words of that contract kept going through her mind every time she felt like speaking out. Don't say anything, or you'll lose everything. With each year that went by, that silence became heavy. She saw things happen that made her feel nervous. She did things that were against the ideals her family taught millions of people. There were times she just couldn't get rid of. Times when she thought about the people she loved most. She felt bad for the innocent and those who couldn't speak up, but the NDA did not let her go. It wasn't just an official paper. It was mental chains that bound her faith and her morals. Rebecca prayed all the time and asked God if she should have stayed quiet or if that made her a part of the problem. The world she lived in told her one thing, but her heart told her something else. The Lamb family has always put a high value on honor. No matter what, protect the name and the government. But Rebecca started to wonder if loyalty that didn't mean telling the truth was really loyalty at all. It got too much to handle to keep smiling and acting like everything was fine. She played the daughter of Christian royalty on screen. Behind the scenes, she was a woman who was slowly breaking because of things that were never meant to be hers. The safe place that used to feel like home now felt like a cage. Those walls of quiet were getting stronger every day. When Marcus Lamb died in 2021, Rebecca felt like she had no more ground under her feet. Her dad wasn't just her dad. He was the center of the family and the voice that kept everyone going during sermons. He made everyone think that their faith could keep them together no matter what. There was more to his death than sadness. It made a void that no one could fill. Daystar, the family mission, had always been about being strong and united. Now, though, everything felt weak, like a glass that could break with just one mistake. Rebecca tried hard to stay strong in the months after Marcus died. She did what her dad would have liked. She soothed people and smiled at them. Screen, prayed with her mom, and tried to keep the family together. But behind the smiles and nice interviews, she was in a lot of pain. Her house felt different. Her religion wasn't the same. Things didn't seem the same with her family either. It seemed like her mother, Joni, who had always been the bright and strong person in the family, changed too. There was something heavy and restless about her that made Rebecca worry. Rebecca didn't think much of it at first when Joni started spending more time with Dr. Doug Weiss, a Christian psychologist and family friend who had been around for a long time. As Doug was known for helping people get better after loss, she knew her mother was lonely. Soon, though, the friendship grew into something more. In pictures, on social media, and in interviews, they were seen together and smiling. They also talked about love, faith, and starting over. From the outside, it looked like a touching story about a widow who found new hope. For Rebecca, though, it was like a wound that hadn't had time to heal. It had been less than a year since her dad had been seen. It hurt still. Seeing her. Seeing my mother move on so quickly felt like deception wrapped in loss. Rebecca looked like she got it. She told herself that everyone deals with loss in their own way, that this could have been her mom's way of dealing with things. But every new film or picture she posted made her heart sink even more. This was the same woman who used to talk about being patient, loyal, and how important marriage is. Now, she was rewriting her own story in real time in front of millions of people. People's praise for Joni and Doug's relationship made things worse. Online users said it was moving. They said it proved that God could make things better after they were bad. But Rebecca couldn't get rid of the thought that she had lost something holy. She tried to tell her mom about it. She went up to her gently, trying to connect with her as a woman who was also grieving. One night she asked, "Are you sure this is the right time?" But Joni snapped back quickly. "Be defensive." They both agreed that she was being harsh and didn't know what it was like to live alone after being married for many years. There were tears and silence at the end of the talk. Rebecca left feeling even tiny, less heard, and farther away than before. That's when the cracks in their once tight bond got bigger. The family meals turned tense. It got colder at the ministry meetings. It had always been the family's job to make decisions about Daystar, but now they were being made without her. It seemed like Joni and Doug were slowly changing not only the church, but also the whole personality of the family. Rebecca felt like she didn't belong in the world she had helped make. Little things started to bother her, like new people at work, changes in the shows, and slight changes in the tone of the programs. Daystar was changing into something that didn't feel like her dad's idea of her anymore. The NDA kept coming back to her mind every time she wanted to speak out. That paper was still there, casting a shade over her. It made her think of how some facts could destroy everything if they were spoken out loud. The thing that had always led her, her faith, began to feel hard to understand. She asked God for clarity, peace, and strength every night so she would know what to do. However, prayer began to feel heavy. Did she stay quiet to protect her family, or did she protect the wrong things? There were no answers because one question led to another. She often thought about her dad. He always said that love and truth should go hand in hand, and he laughed a lot. Honesty is what he would have wanted. But he would have liked peace, too. Rebecca tried to get both, but couldn't. She tried to keep them in balance, but they pulled her apart more. She had the same pain in her chest every Sunday when she went to church or watched her mother speak on TV. Love and sadness came together. Faith and doubt together. She wasn't mad at her mom. Not really. She was just lost. She saw her family falling apart right in front of her eyes. It had been a strong base for her. Some nights, she'd be by herself and watch old videos of her parents being together. Her dad was speaking, and her mom was smiling next to him. Friends in life and faith. At that point, they looked like they couldn't be stopped. Only she was left to try to make sense of what was left. She missed her mom, even though they still talked. She really missed her dad, more than words could say. Another thing she missed was the simple trust she had before all the lies, contracts, and betrayals messed everything up. She loved her family and wanted to do what was right, but her heart was torn between duty and telling the truth. She didn't know it yet, but this quiet battle between faith and truth would push her to make the hardest and bravest choice of her life. Rebecca Lamb kept her secret to herself for years, the kind of secret that keeps you up at night. Daystar had worked for decades to build a picture of togetherness in the family, and the NDA she and her husband J.W. signed was meant to protect that name. But for Rebecca, it wrapped around her soul like a chain. She thought it was the right thing to do, and that protecting her faith also meant protecting the church. She knew it wasn't true, though. She felt a rising sense of fear every time she looked at the people she loved, especially the kids. Her chest. She felt like she was betraying the ideals she was raised to uphold by not saying anything. When she was by herself at night, she looked through old pictures and thought about what had gone so wrong. Her family used to be very close, but now they felt like strangers who were only related by fear and money. She could not speak for a moment without shaking her hands. She knew what the NDA meant. She would be sued, lose her money, and be shamed in public. But more than that, her mother would be angry. Her family would reject her, and she would lose everything she had ever known. She prayed over and over again. In the dark, she asked God for a sign that would help her see. There was silence for a long time. Then things changed in early 2024. Trey's Law is a new law that was passed in Texas. It was called after a boy who had been abused as a child. A case that showed how NDAs were being used to keep powerful people safe and innocent people quiet. Under the new rule, no one could use an NDA to hide child abuse or other wrongdoing. Becky stopped moving when she read about it. Her heart beat fast, beating. First, she read the piece twice and then 3 times to be sure she got it. She had prayed for freedom for years. And all of a sudden, it was here. She had a feeling she hadn't had in years. Hope. The NDA could no longer make her keep quiet. Now she wasn't afraid of being sued, shut up, or erased for telling the truth. She sat down with JW at the kitchen table that night. It was quiet in the house. Copies of the NDA, old emails and notes she had written to herself but never sent were spread out between them. "If we do this," JW said in a low voice. Rebecca agreed, tears running down her face. "There's no going back." She said, "I know, but I can't keep living this way." They prayed together, asking God to give them strength, courage, and safety. When Rebecca broke her quiet, she knew it wasn't a sign of rebellion. It was duty to obey. It wasn't an act of anger or payback. Truth was important, and people who couldn't protect themselves were to be kept safe. She wrote her speech the next morning. It wasn't long or exciting. There were no charges or anger in it. It was easy and from the heart. When she finally broke her silence, she talked about how painful it was to be legally bound to keep quiet while her heart screamed for justice. The world stopped when Rebecca finally told her story. It went viral on social media in just a few hours. People were shocked. Some people praised her guts and said she spoke for those who couldn't. Some people called her a traitor and said she was destroying her family's church to get attention. The response was harsh and quick. Becky stayed calm, though. Because it came from a place that said it was holy, she knew that the truth would always split people. It seemed too much to handle at first. The calls, the interviews, and the messages, many of them nice, some mean. Her mother wouldn't talk to her. She stopped getting texts from old friends. The only world she had ever known and grown up in turned its back on her. But Rebecca felt something new growing inside her even though she was in pain. Freedom. She didn't have to hide anymore. When she looked in the mirror, she felt good about what she had done. Rebecca's story got bigger than she ever thought it would be over the next few weeks. Help was being sought from victims in other organizations, families, and even places outside of the church. They told each other their own stories and talked about how NDAs had kept them quiet out of fear. Trey's rule set off a movement, and Rebecca was an unexpected face of it. She was no longer seen as a rebel, but as someone who stood up for what was right in a world that put shame on being honest. But while other people praised her bravery, Rebecca felt a quiet sadness. She missed her mom. She missed how her family had made her feel like she belonged. But she also knew that things couldn't be kept secret for long. Even in the darkest places, light can find its way in. She wasn't afraid to let that light in for the first time. When Rebecca had some time to herself, she thought about all the years she had spent. We are asking for a sign. It hit her that God hadn't been quiet. He had been ready. We are ready for her when she is. It's time for the world to change. Can't wait for the truth to come out at last. Trey's Law did more than just win in court. It was a message. Remember that faith that doesn't know the truth isn't faith at all. At that moment, Rebecca Lamb knew the truth, which saved her life. The world around Rebecca Lamb didn't blow up all at once when she finally spoke out. It broke slowly, piece by piece, like glass that is being pushed together. Soon, there were only rumors, a few unsure posts online, and some quiet guessing in Christian groups. Some people didn't believe it. One of the most well-known names in faith-based TV was the Lamb family. They had been looked up to for decades as an example of Christian family ideals and a light. It didn't seem possible that there was something dark behind that picture. But when Rebecca's words got out, the whispers turned into a roar. The story was everywhere in a few days. The internet was full of news stories. Talk shows talked about it. It was talked about in churches behind closed doors. People were split up. Rebecca was called brave by some and a traitor by others. Christians, who had always stood by the name of the Lamb, didn't know what to do. They had seen Rebecca grow up on TV for years. Now they were seeing her do something that no one thought she would do. The person who told the truth and broke the silence. Things quickly turned cold in the family. Calls were not answered. People wrote notes to read. People who used to support her stayed away from her in public. Joni, her mother, was very angry. She felt caught off guard and betrayed. She thought Rebecca wasn't being brave when she told her. It was a revolt. She couldn't see that her daughter made the choice because she was hurt, not angry. They used to be very close, but now they only talk to each other through short, far-away notes. "I hope all is well with you. I am praying for you." The words were cold and were written more out of habit than love. At Daystar, the weather changed overnight. People talked quietly in the halls. Longtime friends stopped giving money. Tents were set up for board meetings. The network rushed to fix the problem. In public, they didn't say Rebecca's name. They blamed her for the chaos behind closed doors. Some called for her to be totally cut off from the ministry and everything that had to do with it. For Rebecca, it was like being sent away again. The first was the NDA, which made her keep quiet. For finally telling the truth, this one was the punishment. The reaction online was very strong. She was attacked for her religion, her reasons, and her personality by people she had never met. People she didn't know said she was lying to get attention. Some people said the media was using her to hurt Christianity. It hurt a lot, but Rebecca was ready for it. She paid the full price for telling the truth. Having everything she knew about faith and loyalty came from being told to keep the peace, smile through the pain, and never talk about family problems in public. But she now knew that peace that is based on lies isn't really peace at all. It's about power. JW, her husband, was always there for her. When people online were being too mean, he would take her phone and turn it off. That was the right thing to do. A soft voice would remind her. It costs something to tell the truth, but it costs more to lie. Every night they prayed together for peace, not to be liked or defended. When you know you did the right thing even though it hurts, you achieve peace. Still, it was hard to be alone. Rebecca had lost more than just the trust of her family. She had lost everyone she knew. People who used to worship with her stay away from her now. Invitations to church events stopped coming. Her name was said in a low voice as a warning. There were times when she wondered about everything. Had she gone too far? Could she have dealt with it a different way? When doubts came up, though, she remembered why she had said what she had. For those who were hurt, those who were silent, and the truth that had been buried by fear. After a few months, something strange started to happen. Some people turned their backs, but others softly reached out. At first, she got messages from people who had been abused, worked in ministry, or were just regular Christians who had been shut down by their own churches. They praised her bravery. They said that hearing her story made them strong enough to tell their own. People were brave enough to walk through the door that Trey's Law had opened. She didn't think of herself as a hero. She still cried a lot. Even though she missed her family, she saw that the freedom she had found wasn't just for her. For everyone who had ever been told to be quiet because of their faith. She was in pain for a reason now. People's lives were being changed by the strong wave of her silence. Churches started to have tough talks about who is responsible. Ministries looked over how they run things. The holes her truth had made were letting light in. Still, the cost to me was high. Rebecca really wanted to get along with her mom again. She would sometimes pick up the phone to call Joni, but she would always hang up. It was still too painful to touch. However, she loved her very much and never stopped. Every night she prayed for her. Not because they were angry, but because they hoped that one day they could be at peace again. They were still in love with each other. It had been hidden for years by pride and pain, waiting for grace to find it. The issue started to get less important over time. The news stories went on to other ones. The internet came up with new things to fight about, and Rebecca started to put her life back together in the peace that followed. She and JW got out of the public eye and focused on their religion, their marriage, and helping other people get better. She began helping at a nearby outreach center, where she helped survivors who had been too afraid or ashamed to speak out. Being real was the first thing she had done in years. It wasn't like she was acting or following a script. She was just Rebecca, flawed, honest, and free. Her faith also changed. It wasn't the put-together version she had grown up with. It was honest, straight, and raw. She no longer thought of God as someone above the rules who watched over her. Though, as a friend who prayed with her through every long night, she knew that faith isn't about being perfect. It's about not giving up. It's about being there when everything hurts and still believing that the pain has a reason. The story of Rebecca gave people a quiet kind of hope. She didn't start a new church or write books. She didn't try to get gigs or attention. It was the kindness, the truth, and the steady peace that filled her home that spoke for her. Many people who met her were shocked by how calm she was. They were ready for anger, sadness, and maybe even hostility. But all they found was peace, the kind that doesn't come from winning, but from giving up. From finally giving up the need to be understood or forgiven and just living in the truth. Rebecca understood that the fallout, all the loss, and all the it had cost them their hearts to be free. It was worth it, though. She found herself when she lost the world she had known. The woman was no longer scared and she couldn't be moved. When she was silent, her voice became her most powerful tool. However, the scars would always be there. They were signs of living. That telling the truth is the only way to find real peace, even if it hurts. The Lamb Empire might not be the same again, and she may never be able to get along with her family again. Becky had already made her choice, though. She had picked love over fear, faith over fear, and truth over silence. She finally felt what she had been asking for as she looked out at the quiet sky over Texas. Instead of fame or forgiveness, I want freedom.